Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Inside Game podcast. Before I introduce today's guest, this episode is in association with Raymond Waters at the Old Coach Inn, Castleblaney. And here's a word from Ray's Tanning and Wellness in Auchnachoy.
Rays are the first on the island of Ireland to offer the Red Wave Pure Red Light Therapy Bed, a cutting-edge recovery tool now being used by top athletes worldwide. Whether it's muscle soreness, inflammation, joint stiffness or speeding up overall recovery, red light therapy is becoming a genuine game changer. So if you're training hard, coming back from a knock or just wanting to stay injury free, call into Rays and experience the benefits for yourself. Rays Tanning and Wellness, helping athletes recover faster, perform better and stay in the game.
Welcome everyone to the Inside Game podcast. Please remember folks to give the Inside Game a like, a follow, a subscribe or a share on all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube and Spotify. It really does help to keep the podcast coming. So episode number 25 on today, it's a pleasure to welcome on Clan Ironman and local pundit Mark Beattie. Mark, you're very welcome on the show. How's it going?
All good, Gary. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on here. As I said to you before there, I've been watching a lot of the podcast so far and it's been absolutely brilliant and fair play to you.
Really appreciate that. Thank you. Mark, we're going to look back on Armagh's Ulster final win. We'll review the Ulster Championship campaign maybe a wee bit as well, and we've got the Derry game to look forward to in the All Ireland series. But before we do, I remember playing against you years ago for Sarsfields against Clan Iron, Mark, and I remember playing with you in soccer for Oxford Sunnyside, and it's safe to say I preferred playing with you because there was a lot less chance of getting the ribs tickled that way. But what I wanted to ask you, you had a long career playing senior club football with Clan Iron, and given the commitment needed even at club level nowadays, and most lads will probably get around about 10 or 12 years out of it, maybe 15 at a push, but like your playing days they were well in excess of that. So what was it that kept you coming back year after year?
I don't really know, Gary. I just loved it. I just love. Still, even now, I just love kicking about a football, and I love the whole going down and training and that sort of competitive edge. And I just probably always had that from a young age, and and Clan Iron was just always a part of my life. It was just there from the youth club, from just playing from under 10s the whole way up, and I just loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I couldn't ever be without a ball in my hand type thing. And then that grew as you get into senior football and you sort of made your way, and I know whenever I would have been breaking into the senior team at Clan Iron, I was just an ordinary player. Players my age a lot better than me, but I just enjoyed it that much, and I really, really committed to it once I got sort of into my early 20s and trained hard and done a lot of work just on my own. And when fellas were coming through thinking maybe they're going to take my place, that was an odd challenge, and I just kept loving that challenge, that I try and keep them out and maybe make them better if they do get in. Well, they're going to earn it, and that just kept rolling on. And I think for a lot of people, whenever you hit that sort of late 20s and you're still at it and you're still prepared to that commitment, and then the experience comes and you're sort of able to get through seasons and just. To me, you get better as you get older, and obviously the legs start to go, and the pain, if you can sort of not have too many injuries, which I was very, very lucky. I didn't have any major injuries, just had knocks and sores and stuff, and definitely feeling it today now, that the fact that I did play so long. But I think a lot of that sort of helps. A lot of guys, when they get to maybe late 20s, early 30s, and they get a bad injury or something like that, and family life and all starts kicking in, it's maybe a bit easier to walk away. For me, not having them injuries, and I was sort of lucky enough too, where fit enough, and I had a natural sort of fitness where, it wasn't the fastest in the world, it wasn't, but I was able to cover a bit of ground, and that sort of stayed with me. And I think that all them things just sort of helped me keep going. But I think the main thing was just the love of playing football. Just loved it.
Well, you're still playing a bit of dads and lads and things, Mark, and maybe even a bit of masters. And look, I was down in Armagh played Cork down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in 2024, and the two of us were sitting sort of beside each other that game, and we were talking just before the match. And I remember you mentioned to me you played in the Masters version of the compromise rules it was Ireland against Australia, which I thought was very interesting. Maybe tell us a wee bit about that, Mark. Maybe how you got the call up and how that went and things.
So that was another sort of lucky break. No, I got in. I sort of quit playing. What was it? Just before COVID, the seniors, and I sort of once the COVID then kicked in, and I just basically wasn't doing anything like everybody else, and I got away from it, and for a year or two away from the club as well, and was asked to go and play for Armagh Masters, and I wouldn't be one for going to the gyms or anything like that. I just if I get a chance to play football or any sort of stuff like that, I went over the field and kicked about and all. And I went to the Masters and absolutely loved it, and still do. I'm still playing. We actually beat Tyrone there 2 weeks ago, which is a massive win right there, second defeat in about 6 years. But and then that got me rolling again, and then all of a sudden I was going over to the field with a bag of balls at 40 odd years of age, and I just got going like that. And myself and actually Dora Edwards from our road. The two of us then were called as Armagh representatives to go to the compromise rules, and really we were trialling against each other, and Dora got the nod, but unfortunately for Dora, he took sick, and they then got the call to go and play for Ireland, which was a it was a great honour, like to do that at that age. And we played the Aussies in the compromise rules, took a few big hits there that I wouldn't have experienced even in Gaelic, but their skill levels and stuff like that with the round ball wasn't that great, so we would have been much superior than them. And then the second test, then we played them. Dora then came on board, and the two of us were lucky enough to represent Ireland on the same day, and it was great, like really real enjoyable occasion, and it was a great honour to do it. So it was,
And what about the tackling? Like in Aussie rules, they can tackle sort of rugby style. When the player's in possession of the ball, will they still doing that even at sort of like a Masters level?
There was what they call the wrap. So they wrap you, and you don't be long realizing to move the ball whenever you get wrapped. Sometimes you feel that you're going to break a tackle like you would do in Gaelic when somebody's going to come in with a hand. And at Masters level, them tackles don't come in just as frequent or as hard as what they would normally do.
Yeah.
But with the Aussies, once you try to go into the tackle, they knew how to wrap you. And I can tell you that when they wrap you, they just don't stop. You're put to the ground, and maybe about a 16-stone man falling on top of you as well, maybe with an elbow going to the ribs or something. But so that happened to me once, and it didn't happen to me again. Because every time I got the ball, it wasn't long moving it.
Done a bit of wrapping yourself, maybe.
Yeah, done a few. We would have tried. Maybe just they were a bit more physical now than I expected. So you weren't really weren't wanting to get into them in that sort of level with them, But listen, it was people picked from all over the country. It was a representative from every county, and some big players there. Kevin McGuigan from Derry, and players like that there. Tyrone. They always had a couple of good representatives. You had actually Conor Gormley and people like that were down at it. You had, I can't remember his name. He would have played in the Aussie rules against Ireland. The guy who would have been with Peter Canavan, the two of them, the famous. You see the clips of him and Canavan fighting and pulling the jersey off each other in the late 90s. He was there playing. He was playing against us. So it was enjoyable, very good. I wouldn't mind the away trip as well if that comes along.
I'm sure you wouldn't. Mark, your club, Clonerne, fair to say Clonerne rose to prominence in recent years in terms of the senior men's team. 2021 and 2024 Armagh Championship titles, the first time the club won it since the 1960s. And look, within the club, I'm sure that there's probably a feeling there that the two titles in the last 5 years could have or should have been maybe one or two more. But look, there's a big county representation there now in the Armagh senior squad, and underage and minor successes there's been a fair bit of it there too in recent years. So there's bound to be a lot of satisfaction in where the club is now compared to previous decades.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Again, whenever I first started, it was 95. We dropped the intermediate. The year before that, I think the Clans had annihilated us in St. Peter's in the senior championship, and we dropped the intermediate, and it took us then to 02 to win the intermediate championship to get back to senior football. So we were at a low ebb if you really look at it compared to what Clonerne think, and we maybe should have been. We always looked upon ourselves as being a senior club, and I think in them years, we dropped them. To be fair, we were in that level, because that's the level we were at. We weren't good enough to be at any all level, and so as in them periods, the underage, as we were playing at that level, the underage structures in the club weren't great, and we weren't winning too many matches. And in fact, there was levels of players who hadn't won a match up until they're under 12, under 14. So there was a few people in the club decided to really knuckle down and say, "This is enough of this. We need to put something in place." And there's a lot of people within the club, a lot of people who came from outside the club, who became members of the club, and they got involved and put the shoulder to the wheel. Brought, Philip Kerr and people like that came in and coached the coaches, and really put a massive on getting the numbers back up again through Tonic Moore and the local schools and stuff. And that produced the players that we have now at the county level. And maybe the first group of them players was probably the likes of Shea Heffron, John McGee, that sort of age group. And then after that came your Turbos and your TKs and Barry and Daniel and stuff like that. So yeah, and then right down now to Cohen Henderson, Ewan McGreevy, James Moriarty, fellas like that who just won the minor championship a couple of years ago. So that's the sort of span that we have of real good underage teams. And yeah, the club's really proud of all them players, but they're also, you can tell. I actually seen a couple of them on Sunday after the match, and it was just in the stand, and a few of the coaches that had coached them. And you can just tell by people's expression towards people. And, a couple of players were on the field, a couple of main players that played on Sunday, and you could just see them looking into the crowd and, acknowledging them coaches. And I seen it. I was from a bit back, and I could see it. And that's a proud moment for any Clonard man to see that there, to see that these guys out in the field who have just produced a brilliant performance, individual performances as well, and winning an Ulster Championship. But looking into that crowd and probably thinking, you boys were behind us. You played a massive role in this here, and that's fantastic. And for our club, it's just brilliant. We've now got a couple of all-stars in our club. We have All-Ireland winners, Ulster Championship winners now as well. And it's fantastic. So this is just brilliant place to be.
Just a shout out and a thank you to Raymond Waters at the Old Coach Inn, Castleblaney, for the continued support of the podcast. If you're ever in Castleblaney, or even if you're not, why not visit the Old Coach Inn for a fine dining experience and entertainment in their friendly bar and lounge. That's in the Old Coach Inn, Castleblaney.
We'll move things into the Armagh side of things. At the time of recording, we're not long after Armagh winning the Ulster final. Finally, we'll get into that shortly. But if I was to get your thoughts on how Armagh got to the final, maybe sum up what you made of the Ulster campaign. The extra time win over Tyrone, and then the comfortable enough wins over Fermanagh and Down.
Yeah, Tyrone, to be honest, going into the Tyrone game, people are always worried about Tyrone. I got it wrong. I thought we were going to win that game fairly comfortably, just for whatever reason. I just think that but it's also a championship being what it is, and that rivalry and all being there, Tyrone just came back at us, and it's happened a lot this year. And once they get their tails up and the 2-pointers and all the rest, they just that belief kicked in, and all of a sudden you thought, oh no, not again. But they got over the line and got through. And I don't know where Tyrone's at. That's the truth about Tyrone. I don't know where they're at. I've heard different reports going in this weekend that they're in a good place, and I'd be very surprised if they beaten Roscommon. So it's just hard to tell where they're at and how good of a performance it was by Armagh. But as we move through it, the Fermanagh game, Armagh done what they had to do. There was no more. If Armagh would have won that game by 2 or 3 points, everyone would have been complaining about this, that, and the other thing. And then, when they go out and they take up the lead, they're done. But it was so professional in the first half. The way they set themselves out, they really went at it. They took the foot off the pedal in the second half, and I'm sure Geezer would have had sort of that wee bit to beat them with McGurn's 2-pointers and stamping off them and stuff like that. But he wouldn't have wanted them going flat out in the second half and, maybe injuries or anything like that. So I'd say he was fairly happy with just the way that game went. They done what they had to do in the first half. They got the big lead up and the game was over, So it was just an all-out good win and showed the difference, the gulf in class between the two teams. The Down game, everybody was walking to that game, and you seen the crowd, the Down crowd that came to the game. They had their belief and their hopes up, but I think it's been spoke about before that Down just generally they had their big day against Donegal, and to
Yeah.
be fair to them, to recover and get themselves back in that week. Armagh had just beat Fermanagh. They really weren't tested. They were going into the game perfect and primed. And after the result of Down beating Donegal, that was brilliant motivation for Armagh, McGeeney, and the whole management team just to get the players right. And that's the way they came out firing. And Down, just the legs probably had gone. We all know no matter what level you're playing at, once you get that big win or a shock win, to go and repeat it the following week, it's a massive ask. And once Armagh got themselves into a position where they're in the lead, there was only going to be one winner. And to be honest, it looked like Down just after a certain period of time they gave up the ghost, and it was disappointing for Down. And then you were wondering, then has Armagh really been tested here going into the final when you knew Monaghan had? And but they're a bit Armagh, a bit like Donegal. I know Armagh was gunning for Ulster Championships over the last couple of years as well, but McGuinness always set his stall out about winning the Ulster Championship. I think there's not much giveaway on any of the Armagh players that I'm talking to, but I think there was a real massive go for winning the Ulster Championship this year. And they achieved that. It was fantastic. But Donegal, did they really want to meet Armagh? I'm not saying they went out to get beat against Down or anything like that. Definitely not. They went out to win that game. But how hard were they trained the week before? How bad was Langan's injury? It's just wee things. Just you would have to question. Where McGuinness's sights after last year is definitely, I think, set on Sam Maguire, and that's there's nothing else in their heads to win that there. So that's their path to the Ulster final. It was good. They were tested against Tyrone. The next two games, I don't think they were overly tested, and then they still went in and produced that performance in the final.
They did indeed. And the Ulster final itself, Mark, it finished 121 to 0-24 after 70 minutes, and then 228 to 0-25 after extra time. A 9-point win in the end. It was the first Ulster final after 18 years, and 3 defeats in the last 3 finals for Armagh. So look, the provincial championship, they've come under a bit of scrutiny in recent years. I don't know about you, Mark, but I certainly enjoyed winning that one.
Oh no, fantastic! I tell you, it's different too. whenever you have players that are from your club and you're involved with them now this year and stuff like that, it's you're so nervous. It is. I was so nervous at the weekend. And before the game, I started saying, Armagh's going to win this game by 6 or 7 points. I just think that Armagh's going to win nearly every game by 6 or 7 points. But then once the comeback started to come on, and after what's happened over the previous couple of years, all of a sudden you're thinking, no, this can't happen. And Began's opportunity with a free out at the hillside, if that went over, our game was up. I think we had lost the game, but lucky enough it didn't happen, and we got over the line, and it was a real enjoyable win, and one that you could tell that the players, when you see the players, how much it meant to them, and the supporters then just follow suit, and Armagh, with the support that they have, there's just a real brilliant buzz about Armagh football at the moment, and I was so happy for Nasty, my own clubmen, and the whole team that what they've went through, and McGeeney as well. The criticism he came under from everybody over the last number of years, and what he's done to that team and what he's created there it's just full paradigm. Like he's some man,
He is. Pat Spillane, I put a little piece up on the page there yesterday. Pat Spillane said about he doesn't know if he's seen a fitter team than Armagh at inter-county level. The fitness and conditioning that they had, Monaghan were dropping like flies. Monaghan had to give everything they gave. They had they had a game plan that basically it needed to work in 70 minutes, and if it didn't, they weren't going to last the pace, whereas Armagh did. There was no cramping going on in Armagh, whereas Monaghan, maybe 4 or 5 other players are cramped up. So look, I suppose what I'm saying here really is the fitness and conditioning that they have now, the professionalism side of all that. It's just a real credit to the backroom team, McGeeney, and the players themselves.
Yeah, but for me, I don't think that hasn't came down to just 1 or 2 years. That's came down
Yeah.
to what he's done to these guys from the day that he's came in. And as I say, he came under a lot of criticism, but he made these men. He made them into men. Fellas who were flagging or weren't prepared to put the work in, you were gone. See you later. You weren't going to make it as a county player, and that's it. And then the fellas that stuck by him, they've put in 6, 7, 8. Now I know there's some fellas that just come into the squad, but fellas that have been there 5, 6, 7 years, the conditioning that they've got themselves in is they're just at a different level altogether. And you've seen that at the weekend. But again, I also think, Gary, a lot of that comes down to the confidence of the squad. They're so confident. There's a massive belief in each individual player. And again, down to management, what he's created there as well. And the one other thing that I would say is how he managed. Whenever they came out in the first period of extra time, I was looking, there's such and such, who's off, who's on. He had made the changes. He knew inside out what was going to happen. That's not pre-planned. And there was 4 or 5 changes there. McElroy came back in, Cian McConville came back in, but Cian only came in for literally the 10 minutes, or maybe he didn't even last the 10 minutes. And that just gives it fresh legs again. And then the next batch of boys came back in after that. It was unbelievable. It was a great bit of management, and you could see the freshness. And then once you got the scores and got ahead, then they kicked on, man. And then it looks sometimes that the legs are gone, but it's just the other team is driving it on, and it's very hard to claw that back. But the Monaghan deserve a lot of credit for their doggedness and just how they stayed in the game. McKeown, what he done when he came on. McCarthy had a fantastic game. They're just a real dog. I mean, you think of losing the Hugheses and McManus over the last number of years, you thought Monaghan were gone. But as I say, Began had that opportunity, and things could have been very different. But all in all, Armagh were the much superior team. Just that sort of 10-minute spell where they really put the press on the kick out, and Armagh struggled to get the ball out for that period of time, and McKeown kicked a couple of 2-pointers, and that got them back in the game. And then the momentum sort of looked like it was going Monaghan's way, but fair play to Armagh, they dug in and we got over the line, and we enjoyed a Ulster win.
Did indeed. Leadership in the squad now, the likes of Aaron McKay has come back in this year and just leading at the back, communicating. I'm even seeing the likes of Turbo there as well, out of your own club there, Mark. He looks like he's actually leading now in the role that he's playing, not just on the end of scores that maybe he would have been over the last few years. He's actually in there orchestrating. You can see him now playing that type of role. But just maybe there is just a lot of leaders in that team now, team and squad, right throughout all the players that get a chance to play.
I'm glad you said that, because that was something that I've noticed in the last couple of games, and I advised that I would travel with. I'd been saying, there's a real difference about Turbo. When you've seen him in previous years, Turbo was there to get his scores, but you've seen him even on Sunday coming out, and he was orchestrating things out around the half forward line when he came out there and give me the ball, and he was slowing the play down when it needed to be slowed down, and when they needed to score, he injected that wee bit of pace. And I was just saying that there. I think it was against Down as well. He just more vocal, and it's great to see. It's great to see. But no, McKay is just a Rolls Royce of a player. He's just a fantastic defender. But Jordy O'Burns, there's just leaders everywhere, and then you have Aidan and you have Rui Grugan coming on there, and all 2 brilliant leaders. Andy Muirin, who's, maybe not you don't hear him doing a whole pile of shouting or whatever, but he leads by example, and he'll be somebody that I'm sure everybody in that squad looks up to. And the other fella at the moment, who I know I'm going to be a bit biased, but is TK. TK.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Turning into the player that everyone spoke about over the number. Like, from when you think of TK back when St. Ronan's were winning the Hogan Cup, he was the leader then, and Eamon Fitzmaurice actually had referenced him, about this fella Kelly, and through injuries and different things that happened over a few years there, he's now becoming a real player. I don't think he got the credit in 2024 of how good of a player he was, but in the last year or two, especially this year, he's really stood up. And I'd say there's a few Monaghan boys that are still very sore from Sunday with the hits that man put in, so, but just as you say, like, it's all over the field. And, again, Connady, another quiet sort of fella, but leadership. He the other man just does it with the ball, and he just leads like you know. With and people are constantly saying about Clifford. Clifford's the best in Ireland, and he probably is the best in Ireland, one of the best ever. But I can tell you, Ocean Conley's not that far behind him.
He's run them close. He sure is. Well, look, it was a real credit to them, and congratulations to the lads for getting the job done. No doubt they were the best team on Sunday. Probably 55 minutes worth of being the better team in normal time, and for sure, pretty much all of the 20 minutes in extra time, they were very, very dominant. So, congratulations to the lads. Mark, we've also got the Derry match coming up in the new All Ireland series, a new format we have here. There's no group stage this year, but the idea is the same. We'll play a game 2 weeks after the Ulster final. Derry coming to the Athletic Grounds, and whether you win or lose the Ulster final, Mark, there's a come down from it. There's a sort of a physical and mental recovery to be done one way or another, and Derry by now, they will have done all that recovery work after their semi-final defeat, and they're in preparation mode now, where Armagh, maybe still in recovery mode. But look, Armagh, they're rightly favourites, and it's not knockout football just yet, but it does still have the makings of another dangerous matchup.
No, there's no question about that. Derry coming in this year would have seen themselves as definitely potentially playing Armagh or Donegal in the Ulster final. And it was going that road. Only again, Monaghan showed their doggedness and pulled that game out of the fire again against Derry. How they get over the line, I'll never know. But and Derry, there's still that cohort of players. They've still got 15, 16 players. Not as good a squad as maybe Armagh would have, but they have, if they get their first 15 players out in that field, Derry's a match for anybody in Ireland. They are a top team. And it's a banana skin for Armagh. It's one of them games you're coming back after the Ulster final. Everyone's still buzzing from it. Unlike Donegal over the last number of years, because Donegal had been winning Ulster championships. It's 18 years since Armagh won that Ulster championship, and for supporters, for everybody, for everyone about, there's a buzz about it. That's Armagh players will be listening to that. And I know McGeeney's very good at keeping them away from all that, and the focus will be right now, training tonight and last night or whatever. They'll be just back on Derry. But as you say, it's easy saying all these things, and you get yourself right, and we're getting ourselves right. It's all about Derry. But that wee bit of the Ulster final still maybe there, and that can creep into the game. While Derry have full focus, they knew the draw. They have just been 100% focused on Armagh. Derry management, they're all there on Sunday, but the videos and all the rest. While Armagh have been concentrating on Monaghan, it's only now that they'll get the grips with Derry. But I tell you, any team coming to Athletic Grounds in the next week or two, the Armagh support behind the players, like, I don't know what way tickets are going to be for that game, because you have 10,000 people, and I know Armagh, they could definitely sell out without any Derry people being there. And Athletic Grounds is a hard place to come to. That's definitely going to be in Armagh's favour, and it still should be enough to get over the line. And another thing that he's done over the years, you think about 2024, and when the first game against Westmeath, the likes of Barry and these guys only came in at that stage, and you wouldn't be surprised to see 3 or 4 different players from going in against Derry that play in the Ulster final, and that just freshens it all up again. I wouldn't be surprised to see 4 or 5 changes come the Derry game, because it's basically, it's 3 seasons. You have the National League, you have your Ulster Championship, and then you have the All Ireland series, and the team could definitely change for that. And and that's maybe a line he may go down just to freshen it, I
suppose one of the things that you hear a lot of the guys talking about is, if they do just get rested, for example, sometimes the person who comes in does such a good job that they can't get themselves back into the team. So a real credit there on the type of squad that they have. But look, Mark, before we wrap up, have you seen enough of this Armagh team to think they can win an All-Ireland in 2026? Look, obviously, there's a lot can happen on and off the field for all teams, not just Armagh between now and then, but based on what you've seen so far.
Yeah, there's no question about it. They're back in the position that they were a couple of years ago. Only difference is they've won an All-Ireland, and they'll believe that there's no question these boys will, you think of the age profile of some of them. I know Drugan is 35, and Aiden's whatever age, and Andy would be 34, 35 now as well. But the rest of them are all hitting that, Turbo and all are 26, 27, TK is that sort of age, hitting that. A lot of them are coming to the peak of their powers as well. Connolly still young, and these boys, they're ready for it. There's no question that they'll fear nobody. People are talking about Kerry and Kerry this and Kerry that. And I know Kerry will come and they'll get it right, but Kerry's a lot of injuries, and again, the hunger of Kerry when it really comes to it might be questioned as well. The won their All Ireland last year was a massive win for them, and they may think they're going along nicely, but when some team like Armagh comes along and with massive hunger who want to get back there and win it, all of a sudden Kerry might realise, geez, we're not as hungry as we thought we were. So there's 3 or 4 teams. My outside team is Roscommon. They would be a team that fear me. And Armagh don't have a great record against them. We beat them in 2024 in Croke Park, but they're a team that really, really impresses me. So there, and quietly they're bound to believe they have a real opportunity here this year of going doing something. They're winning again. For them, winning the Connacht title was a massive one, and just like you said, mentally and physically, what way they're going to be this weekend against their own. But to answer your question, I definitely believe that this is a real possibility for Armagh to go and win the All Ireland. And I wouldn't have thought that maybe after last year, because they came back after winning the All Ireland. We all have to admit it was surprise at the time. Did we really expect Armagh to win in 2024? It was a fantastic win, but since then these players have grew, and when they played Kerry last year, to me, for that period of time, them 40 odd minutes, Armagh was the best team, and then it sort of just went to pot for that period of time, and Kerry got ahead and got over the line. But they showed still how good of a team they were. The beliefs there. They've showed now this year after the Ulster title, confidence is up, and there's no question that they can go on ahead and bring back Sam Maguire, and it'll be fantastic for the county.
Well, I'd say what a year it would be for you, Mark, if Armagh win the All Ireland and the Ulster, and Clonard and pick up another Armagh title.
Yeah, that would be some year now, no question about it.
Indeed. Mark, an absolute pleasure to have you on, sir.
No problem. Thank you, Guy.
Thanks, Mark.